Recently, the UAE expressed concerns about the prolonged war and mentioned that if it runs short of US dollars, it could use alternative currencies such as the Chinese Yuan for oil transactions. Traditionally, only the dollar has been used in global oil trade, but with the UAE being the first to mention the possibility of using the Yuan, the aftermath of the Middle East war is having a significant impact. Let's take a closer look at today's situation. Here we go. Currently, the UAE has begun discussions with the US to secure a financial safety net in preparation for a prolonged Middle East war. The UAE central bank governor met with US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Federal Reserve officials to discuss the issue of currency swaps. According to the US side, the two countries have not formally discussed establishing a currency swap system yet. The UAE has informed the US of the economic shock it has suffered due to the Middle East war. A Wall Street Journal report says the UAE claimed the US began the Middle East war without informing Gulf countries like the UAE, causing the UAE to be drawn into the conflict. In response, they mentioned that if there is a shortage of dollars in the UAE, they could use the Yuan for oil transactions. Looking at the current situation in the UAE, it's not just an economic shock, the entire national system is being shaken. Iran is strategically putting strong pressure on the UAE in this war. With more than 2,800 drones and missiles raining down, the air defense system has been pushed to its limits, and major energy facilities, ports, and logistics hubs have been hit one after another. Especially the financial infrastructure centered around Dubai relied heavily on its image as a safe investment destination. Now that this image is starting to crumble, there are even signs that global capital is beginning to flow out. Investors now see the region as an area where their money is exposed to war risk the moment they invest. There's another critical problem here: the dollar income structure. The UAE earns dollars by selling oil and gas, and it maintains its financial system with those dollars. But now, with Iran effectively controlling the Strait of Hormuz, oil tankers are being blocked and exports themselves are being disrupted. This isn't just a logistics issue. It's a situation where the country's foreign exchange system is being directly hit. If dollars stop coming in, defending the exchange rate becomes difficult and foreign reserves will quickly shrink. In this situation, the fact that the UAE has proposed a currency swap with the US is a sign that they are already assuming a dollar shortage scenario internally. But here, an even stronger message comes out: the statement that if dollars are in short supply, they might use the Yuan. This is not only a bargaining chip, but it also means that it's being considered as a realistic option at the same time. This is exactly why the Wall Street Journal paid attention to this statement. Oil transactions have long been centered around the dollar, and this structure has supported America's financial hegemony. But the fact that a major oil-producing country like the UAE publicly mentioned another currency sends a very strong signal to the market, especially since Iran is already exerting pressure by only allowing ships that settle in Yuan to pass through. If the UAE also moves in the same direction, there is a possibility that the very structure of payment in the energy market could be shaken. Additionally, despite the UAE's wishes, the likelihood of the US signing a currency swap agreement with the UAE is low. We'll have to wait and see how things develop. More importantly, Iran isn't just taking military action, they're actively changing the financial order. Iran is trying to control the Strait of Hormuz by blockading it and is also demanding toll fees. About 3 billion won per ship is currently known. This suggests Iran seeks more than money. It's a declaration to assert economic sovereignty over the strait. Since the United States is enforcing a naval blockade and military pressure, this effort hasn't fully succeeded, but Iran's intentions are clear. Additionally, Iran announced it will only permit oil tankers from countries paying for crude oil in Yuan or Bitcoin to pass through. This statement disrupts the international maritime order and directly challenges the global financial system. Oil transactions have traditionally been settled in dollars, a system known as the Petrodollar. Requiring passage through the strait only with a specific currency is essentially the same as imposing a settlement currency by force. The dollar still dominates oil transactions, making up about 75 to 80% the Ukraine war. Despite a slight decline since the Ukraine and Middle East wars, the gap remains too wide for other currencies to replace it. This share matters because it's more than just a payment method, it's the foundation of America's power. Oil payments in dollars return to the US financial market, including government bonds, stocks, and tech. This setup has let the US keep global dominance despite large fiscal and trade deficits. This system began in 1974 when the United States agreed to protect Saudi Arabia in return for Saudi Arabia accepting only dollars for oil payments. Afterward, this structure spread across the Middle East, creating a cycle where oil-producing countries' dollars returned to the United States. This has been the main pillar of the international financial order for decades, but now Iran is openly challenging it. They are tightening control over the Strait of Hormuz militarily and pressuring for a settlement currency change economically. Because the strait is a key route for global oil shipments, controlling it is like holding the lifeline of the energy market. Combining settlement currency changes with this turns it from a regional conflict into a challenge to global hegemony. Also, Gulf countries are now more concerned about trusting the United States than about military damage. Before attacking Iran in this war, the United States failed to coordinate sufficiently with its main Gulf allies. This isn't just a diplomatic slight, but an event that undermines trust in the whole security policy. It means that even though they knew their territory could become the target of retaliatory attacks, they were given no time to prepare. Afterwards, the United States provided defensive support, but the results fell short of expectations. Iran, at once, dozens. They simultaneously launched hundreds of drones and missiles, and the entire Gulf region was struck at the same time. Some defensive measures succeeded, but complete deterrence failed. Energy facilities, ports, and military bases were also damaged. During that process, one of the most critical issues became clear: an absolute shortage of defensive assets. In particular, key interception systems like Patriot missiles were quickly depleted. So, these need to be replenished, but this replenishment can't be done in a short period of time. It takes several months to produce and supply them again. In other words, if another attack happens right now, there won't be enough means to defend against it. For the Gulf countries, this is a matter directly related to their survival. But in this situation, the United States prioritized defending Israel rather than distributing resources efficiently. This scene sends a very strong message to the Gulf countries. They feel that they are not the priority. It's a moment when the very structure of relying on the United States for security is being shaken. Until now, the Gulf countries have built their economic growth and financial hub strategies based on trust in America's military power and defense network. But this war has shattered that premise. On top of that, President Donald Trump stopping the war with Iran faster than expected and turning to ceasefire negotiations is another factor that makes the Gulf countries lose trust in the United States. From the perspective of the Gulf countries, this war was a conflict they never wanted in the first place, but now that it has started, they believe it's more important to finish it decisively. If the war stops halfway, the situation becomes even more dangerous. The biggest reason is the Strait of Hormuz. This area is like the lifeline of the Gulf countries. Not only crude oil exports, but also a significant portion of food and daily necessities go in and out through this strait. If Iran maintains effective control over the strait and the situation moves to a ceasefire, the issue of passage can always be used as leverage again. That's why there are even stronger opinions emerging within the Gulf countries. They believe it's much safer to completely eliminate Iran's military threat and restore control of the strait to its original state, rather than stopping ambiguously. So they are continuously demanding that the United States carry on with military operations. The problem is America's attitude. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, President Trump has lost interest in the Middle East war. As mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, there are signs that President Trump's interest in the Middle East war is gradually decreasing. From the perspective of the Gulf countries, it looks like the United States is not maintaining strategic focus on an issue directly related to their national survival. Every single one of these actions is a factor that undermines trust. In the end, the Gulf countries are faced with a very uncomfortable choice. They have to decide whether to continue relying on the United States and accept uncertainty, or to find another way to secure influence. In this situation, the UN settlement option comes into play. It's quite a powerful option. The UAE is sending a signal to the United States that they have other options, and at the same time, using it as a means of pressure. If the United States continues to lose the trust of the Gulf countries like this, it may eventually face a huge backlash. One of the biggest factors that allowed the United States to maintain its hegemony until now was trust, but now they are throwing that trust away. It's not that previous American leaders favored their allies because they were foolish, but because favoring allies helped maintain American hegemony. There was a reason for it, but now the United States is going in the opposite direction.